Normally, when you decide to play a game, you have certain expectations going into it. If it's a narrative-driven game, you expect a rich story with a bunch of well-written characters, or maybe if it's a shooter game, you expect a good variety of weapons and enemies. You play through games waiting for them to throw new stuff at you, a cutscene, a side quest, a new mechanic. If the game is well designed, developers will try and introduce new stuff for the player as much as possible. Or if it's a game that is made to be highly replayable, say multiplayer games or roguelikes, people spend years to perfect that gameplay loop and make players interested in coming back. But what if you download a game, you boot it up, you start playing it, and you keep playing and nothing happens? Recently I got very interested in seeking out niche games that offer you weird and unique experiences, and an idea that I've been thinking about a lot is a game about nothing. No plot, no complicated game mechanics, just an interactive piece of a nothing burger. What is the point of a game like that? Was there even any intention behind making it? Sometimes it's honestly impossible to tell. Now, it's a bit complicated to define what a game about nothing is, and I'm not trying to be a dickhead here and say that your favorite game has no substance. Chill. I'm going to present you a list of games that to me feel in a way pointless, maybe not meaningless, but pointless. And that's not a diss, because I think they actually offer an interesting experience to a certain degree at least. They are just not structured in a way a typical video game would be, and that is just completely my opinion and feelings. You've been warned. First game on my list is called Everything by David O'Reilly. Right away you might ask, Dima, are you a fucking moron? The game is literally called Everything, how could it be about nothing? Well, if you think about it, could a game about everything be about anything in particular? Everything is a game. I think. Nothing about it is similar to anything I've played before. You start by playing as an animal and yes, that's how they move. At any point you can choose to possess anything you encounter, be it another creature or even something like a rock. Besides that, you can listen to thoughts of everything. Thoughts of a polar bear or thoughts of a tree, and they usually say something existential or philosophical. I need to think up a name for myself. I tried Dima for a while, but it didn't give off the right vibe. It was so bad it stunk the whole world up. Hey yo, what the fuck? Besides thoughts, you can find audio recordings and literally listen to seminars of a real philosopher named Alan Watts.
I find it a little difficult to say what the subject matter of this seminar is going to be, because it's too fundamental to give it a title. Who is apparently known for interpreting and popularizing Buddhist, Taoist and Hindu philosophy for a Western audience. Everything is a perfect example of a game about nothing. You travel around this endless landscape, transforming into something as small as a microbe or into something as large as a galaxy, while reading thoughts of a frog going through an existential crisis. Playing everything is more like meditating or being in a trance. It's an experience you won't come back to often, but I think it's worth experiencing it for at least an hour just to see where it takes you. This game might seem large, but it doesn't overwhelm you with anything unnecessary. It gives you space. Space to just sit there and think.
We feel we have been hypnotized, literally hypnotized, by social convention into feeling and sensing that we exist only inside our skins. That we are not the original bang, but just something out on the end of it. And therefore we are scared still. Gosh, my wave is going to disappear. And I'm going to die. And that would be awful.
Yume Nikki is a game released in June 2004, and it was developed by a Japanese person who calls themselves Kikiyama. The game is old and you might not have heard about it, but from what I read online, it seems to be a cult classic, and its influence possibly affected some of your favorite games, like Omori or Undertale. From Japanese, Yume Nikki translates as Dream Diary, and as expected, the game is about exploring dreams of our protagonist called Madotsuki, who looks like a little girl. The game is made in RPG Maker, but unlike most games you played, it doesn't have any combat or even plot. All you can do is move in 4 directions and press the interact button, which is the most this game will have to offer in terms of gameplay, except that one minigame you can play on Madotsuki's console. There is a door in your apartment. When you try and open it, the girl will shake her head, refusing to go outside. But when you go to bed and enter the world of dreams, you can go and explore all sorts of surreal places. In Steam tags, Yume Nikki has psychological horror, and I'd say that fits. Everything you see doesn't make any sense, just like in a dream. You will walk around constantly finding dead ends, things that seem like puzzles that don't actually mean anything, and you can't interact with them. All that is left for you is to keep walking around. Eventually you will find some things you can interact with, and if you do, they will give you an effect that changes your appearance. The first thing I found was that flying cat symbol, which gave me an effect called cat, but when I used it, the appearance of Madotsuki looked like a mouse, which made me think I'm being chased here. But after I kept playing, nothing really happened. All those locations are full of weird imagery and things that look like child drawings, which would make sense for Madotsuki's imagination if she is actually a child. You also encounter different NPCs here that don't actually say anything, like this girl who is just walking back and forth in some sort of a cave. There was only one time I encountered an NPC who looked hostile, but even after I got caught, I didn't die. My character just got placed in this tiny space that I couldn't leave. The game definitely succeeds as a psychological horror. Unlike many other horror games, it actually made me feel uncomfortable, and it definitely leaves a lot up to interpretation. Even though I didn't beat the game myself simply because I didn't bother to collect all 24 effects without a guide, I looked up online what the rest of it looks like, and that is the reason I decided to include it as a game about nothing. Madotsuki lives alone in her small apartment. All she has is her console and a table with what seems like a diary. She wakes up in the bed, but when you go to sleep, she always appears standing on the balcony. And when you collect every effect, Madotsuki wakes up and jumps off. The game seems empty for a reason. In my opinion, it's trying to represent a life of someone whose life feels empty and meaningless. Madotsuki doesn't go outside, she just writes in her diary and sleeps. I think it's interesting how that game is called Dream Diary and nightmares are never mentioned. The main character doesn't seem scared of anything, even though there are some creepy events. But perhaps it's just the mind of a person who lost purpose. That's why the experience of playing this game felt so pointless. Just like this fucking video. Since we are on the topic of games that make you feel uncomfortable, we have to mention liminal spaces. And the specific game I chose for this video is Liminal Shift. Liminal spaces is an aesthetic that relies on the uncanny valley effect. It's that feeling of familiarity, but you know that something is off. Liminal spaces was always a fascinating concept to me, that unfortunately got ruined a lot recently when people started adding entities to it. Some spooky creature that wants to eat you. Whoa, scary. Believe it or not, adding a bloodthirsty Labubu to backrooms doesn't make it more creepy. It just destroys the original purpose of the concept. Liminal Shift is one of those games that gets it right. There is no monster chasing you around, no jump scares, at most you'll shit your pantaloons from a light bulb exploding. It's just a really good looking walking simulator where you explore infinite corridors. You see objects that have no place in an office building or architecture that is very far from making any sense, but ultimately nothing happens. This game goes extremely hard with my ominous Bells of Doom playlist. The Graveyard is a curious game. It's in a way infamous. Reviews on its Steam page are mixed, and one of the top comments says, "Whatever you do not buy this." That can't be a good sign. I'm going to be honest, I just watched the entire playthrough of this game on YouTube, which is something you could do yourself. I mean, the game is 10 minutes long. This is what the gameplay looks like. That's it. You just walk through some graveyard as this granny who can barely walk, and then she sits down on a bench and leaves. But wait, there is an alternative ending where the granny sits on the bench for a little while and then a song starts playing, explaining how different people, I guess related to this granny, passed away. And then she fucking dies. That's it, she just dies on that bench. Roll the credits. You know, if Yume Nikki, while being absurd, wanted to make you feel some sort of emotion, this game is just about nothing, and I refuse to hear that this game is trying to say something in an artsy way, because the most it says is that dying sucks, I guess. Tale of Tales, the developers of this game, I don't know what the fuck you made, but hopefully there is no more. They made another one. The Endless Forest is a multiplayer online game and The Endless Forest is a multiplayer online game and social screensaver, a virtual place where you can play with your friends. It says on their website that looks like this. I'm pretty sure it's not possible to play this game currently. They apparently announced that they are remaking it in 2016, but I cannot find the game on Steam or anywhere else. Here is some footage I found on YouTube posted 16 years ago, and what you're seeing is the entire game. It's a multiplayer game where you can't interact with any object or other players. It doesn't even serve as a chat room because there is no way to communicate with your furry friends. The game came out in 2005, by the way, same year as Resident Evil 4. Those games are beyond pointless, and it's not a compliment this time. I genuinely got so curious I had to read the wiki page of that studio. Tale of Tales is a Belgian developer of art games founded in 2003 by Oria Harvey and Michael Semin. In an interview by Nightmare Mod, Michael Semin explained their motives to create interactive art and disappointment at the lack of evolution in interaction of games. Also, it's time for plot twist. Endless Forest actually got a remake in 2024 and became available in its 4th beta version to backers and members of the Tale of Tales community. Genuinely asking, what is that community? Is anyone watching this video a part of it? I swear to God, I'm not trying to be mean, I'm genuinely curious what type of following those games might have in the year 2026. Okay, let's get back to actual playable games. And if you want something niche and obscure, you have to start digging deep on places like itch.io. I found this game called Non-Surreal Game. It was developed by Mavo for a game jam in 2022. The entire game is free and can be played in browser. You can also beat it in about 8 minutes. Right from the main menu, the game is fooling you, and it's all this game is about. You can walk around and interact with objects, but everything just doesn't work the way you expect it to. There was this loading screen that I was staring at for good 30 seconds before realizing I'm already playing, or this room full of doors that lead to brick walls. It's a fun little game where the developer is just fucking with you and nothing else really. A true, fun, nothing game. I also found this collection by Floppy Fish KO called Weird Obscure Games, and I mean, just look at it. Five Nights at Diddy's, Total Freedom, Skibidi Toilet Bomberman, what the fuck is this? Obviously, if you dig through enough stuff you can find a bunch of games that are about nothing, but honestly I don't think it's interesting to talk about many games like that because they are just boring for the most part. One game from that collection I could mention is Disuku JC. It's an interesting little game for sure, but it is barely a game. It's more like a showcase. The game consists of 3 discs and each disc has multiple levels that are just rooms with one PNG splattered across the walls and one sprite in the middle. One room consists entirely out of this QR code, and when I scanned it I got the Japanese word for dream, and this game does feel a bit dreamy and has some cool simple music that I assume was made by the author. It's not much, but it is a free to play browser game, so if you want to find some more obscure and experimental stuff I suggest you take a look at itch.io games yourself. There are some gems here. Last but not least, A Short Hike. Now, it's weird to say that this game is about nothing, since this is the most game out of all the games in this video. It has traditional mechanics, it has NPCs you can talk to, and it has a heartwarming little story. But what's most important, A Short Hike is a game about taking a break, going away from all the stress and worries to chat with locals, collect seashells, go on a quick jog, catch some fish. It's not a game that is trying to be more than what it is. It's about clearing your mind by going on a small adventure that is absolutely insignificant, and honestly I want to play more similar games. I haven't played every single game in existence, and I'm sure there are a bunch of other examples that could fit in this video that I don't know or just haven't thought of. If you have some suggestions, leave it in the comments. I know this video's topic was a bit weird, but I hope you got the vibe I was going for. Some developers either intentionally or unintentionally create some of the most unique experiences you can get in gaming, sometimes by making a game about nothing at all. Holy shit, is that Madotsuki?